Blog Talk Radio.
You are now listening to the Evolution Hour with hosts Rob Gauthier and George Farakis. Hey everybody, this is the Rob and George Enlightenment Evolution Hour. This is Rob.
And this is George.
And today is a very, very wonderful Wednesday. Like every other Wednesday, we are always here at 9 p.m. Eastern, and that's 6 p.m. Pacific, for all your needs, all your questions, all your reflections, all your wants, anything that you need. We're here to help raise the collective vibration for all who want to co-create such a wonderful experience. And today, I'd like you to let everyone know, brother, what we're going to be doing today.
Well, we have the wonderful Wendy Kennedy today, and I'm so excited. I've been a big fan of hers for so many years, and I'm so happy that we're graced with her presence today.
Oh, and it is going to be exciting. She's going to be here with us and have a chance to chat with us, and she's going to have a chance to just talk to us for a little bit, but also she is going to be channeling. Now, for those of you who don't know who Wendy Kennedy is, and I'm sure that most of you who are listening to this have an idea, she was featured channeler in Tuning In, Spirit Channels of America, the original one, the one with Daryl Anka. She was also in there. There was also Lee Carroll and a bunch of other great channelers. She is a channeler of the Ninth Pleaidian Collective, Ninth Dimensional Pleaidian Collective. And her website is higherfrequencies.net. She's one of the great channelers of our times, one of the most efficient, one of the greatest, most open, loving, and intricate channels that we have a lot around, and I'm so glad to have her on this evening, and we will get to her in a minute. But before we do, I want to run through a couple things real quick. The first is that on the 27th of October, that's 11 days from today, we will be doing the Cosmic Panel Mind, Body, and Spirit. And this is going to be a very great event. This is going to have myself, as well as Wendy Kennedy, our guest today, as well as last week's guest, Brad Johnson. And for those of you who did not have a chance to listen to last week's session, or last week's radio show, I suggest that you do, because Brad was a wonderful guest. A lot of great information came through, not just him, but also a dronist. And 2 weeks before that, we had another great guest, and that was Daniel Scranton, another great channeler, another person who adds so much with his connection and his channel, the creator. So we've had a bunch of shows lately with guests in here, and they're all just like I am. They're channeled people who channel, and also interested in helping the collective raise their consciousness. I think that's the only announcements that we have for this week. Brother, what about you? What have you been seeing or hearing going around this week?
Well, just basically, brother, I'm hearing from a lot of people kind of a stagnation that's going on with maybe the energies. That's something that I was going to ask Wendy about tonight regarding the current state of affairs in terms of the energies and the solstice equinox this time of year. Maybe she can shed some light into from the Pleaidian Collective regarding what might be happening, why we're feeling the way we're feeling. So I'm excited to get started.
Absolutely, brother, and so am I. And it's interesting, too. In one of the private sessions that me and you had with Treb, there was a talk about how the energy in August was such a huge amount of energy. It was such a great peak of energy, and we hadn't seen a peak that large since December 21st. But this December 21st is also going to be a large peak, and also
yes.
At the end of next month is supposed to be another hike and peak in energy. So it's interesting to see all of these concepts, how the energy plays on us, but more so how we take that energy and create it ourselves. And I agree with you, brother. There's no time like the now, so maybe we dive in head first. We do have our guest, Wendy Kennedy, who's with us this evening. Are you there, Wendy?
I am. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hi,
Rob,
Wendy.
Hi,
so glad to have you here.
It's
thank
excellent.
you. What a lovely introduction. Thank you.
Oh, it's great.
Well, we do appreciate everything you do, and like I said, your channeling has been phenomenal. It's been well known from a lot of people who enjoy channeling, and we're proud to have you on tonight. We're so excited to get some of your insights and just to be a part of that co-creation with your energy.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. The very first thing we always ask everyone is, what do you feel is important for you to tell us about your journey, from your spiritual journey, kind of maybe how you started and how you connected to your channel?
Wow. It's hard to believe, but it's been almost 20 years. And this really started for me in 1994. And I started having visions, and I didn't know what they were at the time. They were pretty graphic, and I didn't know if they were associated with the building that I was living in at the time. And it was an older building in Chicago, and I started doing some research, and I came across channeling. And at the time, I didn't really know what it was. I hadn't really heard much about it. I grew up in Kansas, and I went to school there. And in school, I got a lot of exposure to things that I probably wouldn't have otherwise. I was studying theater and film, and I was exposed to meditation and yoga and qigong and a lot of energy work to work with the body. And I think that actually opened me up. And looking back now, it was actually when I was in college, I started having past life memories and bleed-throughs. And then that kind of led up to me having the visions in 94. And I was very drawn to channeling, and I found what couple books I could find on the topic, because there really wasn't a lot out there.
Yeah, back
there were
then.
the Seth books and Snea Roman. And there was another one which, unfortunately, I cannot find. It was just this tiny little book, and I did a lot of the exercises in this book, and I started to have really visceral responses, like my eyes would flutter in water, and I could tell that energy was building up, and I was trying to channel verbally, and it wasn't happening. And so I would put it aside, and I was working on myself during the time, and I was taking meditation classes. And then I'd come back to it like a month later, and I'd try again, and I'd have kind of the same response, but I just couldn't get the words out. And so finally, I sat down one day with pen and paper, and I knew that this is what I was supposed to do, and I put the pen down, and I started doing automatic writing. And that is how I started, and I started working with my own angelic guides and a couple of other celestial beings who came in. And for the first 2 years, I really focused on the automatic writing. But about 9 months in, it was very cumbersome for me because I was already hearing the words well before I was writing. And so I knew it was time for the next step, and I needed to put the pen down again, and the words started to come out finally. And that's when the Pleaidian Collective came through. And the Pleaidian Collective is who I work with primarily when I work with the public, but there are a whole host of other beings who tend to come through for myself privately, and occasionally they'll come through for groups. But typically the Pleaidian Collective comes through, and they were waiting for me to work with tone and sound because that's how they work. So they needed me to channel verbally to do that. And everybody always asks where I'm from. Again, I'm from Kansas. They always assume I'm from England or from Australia or South Africa. But really it's just tones and sounds that the P's can work with. They elongate the vowels, and those tones resonate with you at a cellular level. So it's as if you're getting a healing at the same time as you're getting the information. So the other beings that I work with, they don't work that way. They sound like me when they come through. The energy underneath is different. But I always like to talk about that because that's the first thing that people focus on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, they say, why do you sound different?
Yeah, Wendy, if I can, this is George. If I can ask you a question, knowing what you know now, when you were living in that building in Chicago, I'm in Chicago, by the way, but in that building, knowing what you know now, was that like a past life lead through, and what did you finally find out regarding that? Was it just kind of the both the positive and negative lifetimes coming through?
It was a past life, and there was somebody who lived on my floor who was the person I was seeing in my vision. So being near them had triggered that for me. Being around them had triggered that memory for me. In that particular lifetime, it wasn't the happiest of memories from the from an ego-based standpoint. Like seeing it, I was actually seeing someone hanging, and every time I could see it, sometimes it was as if I could touch it, and other times it was just a flash that went through my mind. But I was never frightened by it. I was more curious about it. It was such a strange thing to see. But it wasn't really disturbing. And then as I started working a bit more, I realized exactly what I was seeing. It was another lifetime where I was a small child, and my father in that life hanged himself, and I had walked in to find him.
Oh, I see. It seems like when I hear this type of story, that's why I asked the question. It seems like the more of the dramatic or if you want to call it negative, but those type of past lives seem to come to the surface first versus the happy, abundant past lives.
Well, the guides always talk about that, and they say those are usually the ones that are unresolved. That's where we got locked in fear, and that's why those are the ones that we tend to remember. It's not that we didn't have lots of happy lives. It's just that the ones that we still have trauma trapped in are the ones that we need to look at because we have those same programs running now. Otherwise, those lifetimes wouldn't come up in our memory.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, it was. I've heard that type of story before, so it's. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever really talked about what my visions were, because I think for a lot of people, they'd be really afraid to have that kind of imagery in front of them, and so a lot of people, there's so many fears people have about channeling, and whenever I work with people to teach them channeling, we spend a lot of time looking at fear. What are your fears about it? And to see something that's going to be from the ego level negative or dark, that shuts us down, but it didn't feel that way while I was having the experience at all. It was rather neutral.
So you were detached from it.
Yeah, I was curious. It was just bizarre to me. I was like, this is really interesting. I keep seeing the same thing. There was no emotion to it, really. But it was very clear. It wasn't just my imagination. It was
I've
just
had
a
an
trigger
experience
to get me
like
moving.
that. I'm sorry about that, Wendy. I had an experience that was similar to that a few months before I started connecting to Treb. Basically, it was a medieval time. I had come home. I think I was at a war, and it was so clear. It seemed like it was real, and I came home. The whole village was sick, and I ran back towards my family's house, and they were piling bodies in and burning them. And for me, it wasn't the same way. I didn't feel detached. As soon as I came out of that, I started crying, and it shook me real bad. I sat there and I cried for probably 20 minutes or so. My wife at that time had to console me and calm me down. But I realized at that point, now that I look back, I was shedding a lot of my negativity through myself, and there was some link from myself at that point in my energy that connected me. And that's something that Treb's always talked about. It's not really past life, future life. It's the concurrent lives, and the reason we perceive them is because our energy is linked to them. Do you think that a lot of the things people are dreaming about, a lot of the things in either dream state or astral state that people are dealing with are parts of their energy being shedded, negative and positive?
I think it's a little bit of, yeah, definitely. And sometimes we peek into other lifetimes. Sometimes it's just us working through it in this lifetime, giving ourselves the images and the messages that we need. I think both things are present, most definitely. But I can certainly relate with accessing past lives and having that emotion come up. And there are still even, I have a lot of memories of Atlantis. And even now, I would say that's probably been 17 years. 16, 17 years since those memories surfaced, and I'm still processing through them. They're so strong, and it's some of the core issues that I still work with today. And they're still the same issues that I'm trying to process through and release in my own life here.
Yes. Now, Wendy, do you think, again, knowing what you know now about your experience, what does that tell us about what we're going through in terms of the ascension, this point in time, in dealing with all of our past lives, and again, they're all concurrent. But what do you think? What's your perspective on how? I'm assuming that us that are in this current timeline, that we're kind of at a higher vibration or in the light. Do you think that these past lives are kind of sending us messages or are being drawn to our energy to release some of that old karma?
Well, I think, yes, they're definitely sending us energy in both directions, I suppose, in a positive and a negative direction. But I think as they are working through their lives and working through fear, that information is sent to us. Just as we're doing it here and now, we're sending that information out to all the other holographic aspects of ourselves. And I think when we access past lives, it's because there's information in there for us. Otherwise, it's too overwhelming, and I don't think we would access it. The guides always tell me, it's too much from where you're standing right now to go in and see all those records. So the ones that you view have the little bits and pieces of information that will help you right now to integrate, to let go of fear and judgment. And I think this lifetime is kind of the culmination of the experiment that we're undergoing here on Earth, the process of descension and ascension, where we're able to integrate all of those other lifetimes and all the experiences to release all of that trauma, to move. Because the guides always tell me that this is the grand experiment and that we are taking galactic issues and playing them out on a small scale. And so there are a lot of beings watching. There are a lot of beings who are kind of hanging out and assisting us as best as they can, because what we're going through is going to affect the entire universe. It will be a different universal game as we learn how to master moving from density into a more conscious, awakened state.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. Oh, go ahead, brother. Sorry about that.
Well, I was going to say the concept of kind of exposing all of these different energies from these concurrent lifetimes. I would imagine that's why loving oneself, having the compassion for ourselves and loving ourselves is so important, because we're actually radiating that back to those concurrent lives as well. So I think that's actually what's healing ourselves in this current timeline, but also our past lives as well. Do you agree, Wendy?
I think so. And I mean, everything is a reflection of our own frequency. So if you don't have self-love, then you're not going to get any of that back in the reflection. But, it's funny. Yesterday in private session with a client, the P's were talking about forgiveness and how that's coming more and more into our awareness, and ways of forgiving, different ancient traditions of forgiveness, and that's coming up for 2014. That'll be the hot buzzword. And what a lot of the new practices will focus on are ways of forgiving, and that first starts with self and forgiving yourself, and then forgiving all others for all the perceived wrongdoings. They're not really wrong. It's just what the ego's attached that label to. But I definitely think that's, what you were saying is a huge part of it.
Sure. And I think the integration process on that has really started already. I see it being played out through adversities with many people, where they're up against people within their own relationships, and they're just so angry and upset with each other, and so much anger is spilled in there. So that's the beginning process of self-forgiveness itself. And I see that playing out. And thank you for sharing that with us, too. One question that I've got for you, Wendy, is something that I ask every channeler that I talk to in me. The connection process to the channel themselves is such an interesting process to me. For me, it's so different than it is from every channel is so individual in their way that they connect. For me, there's techniques with breathing, there's visualizations, there's also resonant tuning, the loud oming sounds and everything. In your process to connect, how is, first of all, what is it now? And second of all, how has that changed since you first started connecting?
Well, I think once I established the connection from that point on, it was really simple for me, and it's very, very quick. And the Pleaidians, they're not big on ritual, and working with them has, they kind of give me the shortcuts as best as they can, and all it really is connecting with my heart. And it's almost like a little starburst is what it feels like in my heart center every time I connect. It's very easy for me to get there. It took me a while, like I said, the practice part, but once I established it, it was really easy for me to go back there. My sense memory was pretty strong. My body knew exactly where it needed to go. And, anytime I want to reset myself, if I find myself in a funk or angry or upset, I go through the same process, whether it's wanting to connect with my guides or wanting to connect with myself. And it really is as simple as thinking of something that makes you smile.
So you wouldn't call yourself then a trance channeler, then you're more in an awake and aware state when you channel.
I am. I would say it's a bit of a semi-conscious state. It's like a lucid dream for me. So I'm aware of everything that's come through, but it fades very, very quickly. And for myself, when I channel, I tend to still do automatic writing because it's too hard to remember otherwise. It's much easier if I'm just giving information to people. I don't have to remember it, and so verbally it works. And then, if it's for myself, I have to write it down.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Wendy. It's funny because we've been doing these channelings with Treb, through Rob here, for a couple of years now, and when I would ask Treb, could he tell me about my higher self or the higher aspects, and he mentioned several Pleaidian names, and I was wondering, do you find that the Pleaidian connection versus the other connections that you've mentioned are different in terms of their perspective towards the human being?
Most of them are all pretty loving. The perspectives are pretty similar, and I think that's probably why I'm working with them, because there's a certain energy and a certain message that I agreed to bring through. I work with beings from Sirius and beings from Arcturus and Lyra, and then some that aren't really aligned with star systems. And their energy is pretty loving, all of them. Some of them, they all have different personalities. The Sirians are a bit more direct, but their frequency isn't as high. They're fifth dimensional. So they have a slightly different perspective. It's a bit more I'll say human in some ways. May not be as light and airy as the P's, but I think they're all pretty much on the same page because I'm pretty sure they all work together.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll braid their energy together when I channel, and I don't always stop and tell people that that's what's happening. You can feel a shift in the energy, and that's literally because they're working together, braiding their energy, and it comes through together.
I see. Yeah, the reason why I asked was because I think the Pleaidians are generally associated with more of the human type of entities that, you know, kind of seeded the earth and things of that nature. But I was wondering, was the perspective more of a knowing of our human condition and how we relate to each other and that whole idea?
Well, yes, but they also they bring through a lot of galactic history information for me, and they talk about what goes on in other parts of the galaxy, and having that perspective to help us understand how and why we're creating what we're creating here, and why we keep creating the same patterns, competition and lack, and safety and security issues, control, trust, manipulation, and where that's played out in different sectors of the galaxy. And the Pleiadians that I work with, they don't have physical forms, so they're actually beings of light. A lot of times people, when they think of the Pleiadians, they think of Billy Myers, and they think of the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Pleiadians, but these are actually beings of light, and rather than incarnating to a planet, they actually align with a stellar body, and they align with Alcyon in the Pleiades, and they work with records. They work with information, because Alcyon is the central library for the galaxy where all the information gets stored. Suns are like libraries. They collect and store the information, and so Alcyon is the receptor for all the stars in the galaxy. So because they align with it, they are helping to keep that information available and to share it, and that's part of their role and part of why they're working with us. Now, there are about 2,500 beings in the group, and people also ask, you know, what is my connection with them? And I'm actually part of that 2,500. There is an aspect of me that is part of that collective.
Wow, that's great. You know, we just did a session last night, and I asked, in preparing for the show today, I asked Treb, where were these two entities that are aspects of myself. Their names are Tani and Tel, and he did say that they were from the Electra and Alcyon, and also a Reichert planet as well. So that's why I asked, and I was wondering if the human being that you're doing, let's say one of your clients, if the client is from, let's say their higher aspects are from Sirius versus Pleiadian or the Arcturians, are their personalities different, or is there any kind of different associations depending on where their star homes are from?
Usually it's the issues they're working on. So.
Interesting.
You know, if you're really working with competition, it's probably because you're pulling in energies from Sirius or Orion, and it doesn't mean that that's necessarily your home, but it's the energy that you wanted to integrate here for the purposes of this game. You wanted to make sure that that system was represented so that healing could take place. And what I find is that happens more often than not. You know, people who align with the Pleiades tend to be working on speaking or being a teacher and being a mentor. People who come from Sirius or Orion tend to work with competition. And competition, not just that there's a winner or a loser, but understanding that it's not an either-or situation, that it's this and that it's not one or the other. People who are really good at holding the frequency of love and different variations of it tend to come from Cassiopeia. They align with that system. Then you've got Lyra and Arcturus. Arcturus, they tend to work with tone and sound, A lot of sound healers are pulling in that energy from Arcturus, and then Lyra is a lot of sacred geometry. So it's not always where you're from, because the P's always take it right back to, well, you're really from Source.
Right.
It's just another mental level that you all set up, that I'm from this star system or that star system, and they're like, you're just setting yourself up again to isolate, and they want to push you out of that comfort zone and to say, no, you're expansive, you're infinite. But that's what you're taking on. That's the story you're telling yourself for the moment, so you can work through what you need to work through.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. And that's exactly what they said. You're here to be a teacher and use your throat chakra. I mean, it's amazing the things that they tell you about why you incarnated here and what your soul's purpose is. And it's just I just find it fascinating. They tell you, well, I was born on December 21st, but they actually said, you chose this date because of this, and it's so amazing. And I recommend anyone that is looking to find out these aspects of themselves, to contact Wendy or a channeler that they resonate with. It's truly amazing, the information that is brought forward.
Yeah, it just gives us another perspective, and sometimes it explains a lot, why we have some of these patterns, or it highlights patterns that you really recognize when they're pointed out. You say, oh, my God, I've been doing that my whole life. I didn't, I never really put it quite that way, but that's it exactly.
It's beautiful.
And, it can be really helpful. But, talking about life purpose, gosh, we're so conditioned to think that we've got to be out there and do something huge that reaches millions and millions of people. And really, the greatest impact we have is just working with one person throughout our day, or, just something as simple as smiling to somebody on the street can have a huge impact that then, has a cascade effect. So, that's something that also I think the P's are working with me to help people realize that it's that conditioning of not so much the doing state, but it's about the state of being that we hold that's so important and that's so transformative.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Wendy. That was just beautiful.
The question that I would have for you too, Wendy, is when you're going through your day-to-day life, what obviously a lot of people would assume, well, you're able to channel, your life's perfect. I get that a lot too, and I know that that's not always true. We always face adversities. How hard is it for you to acclimate on your deepest problems that you might have, or your hardest issues that you deal with? How hard is it to take that information, because you know that you have it memorized, you know that it's in your heart, you know that it's in the front of your mind, but how hard is it to acclimate that in the daily life to overcome those adversities?
Well, I think just like everybody else, it's a challenge. It's one thing to know it in theory, and it's another to live it and to put it into action. Sometimes that's not an easy thing to do. It's always been easy for me to connect up and to work with stellar beings. It's not been quite as easy to connect with the planet, or to want to be in my body or deal with my body. And the last year, and I think this is true for everybody, they're having to deal with their biggest issue, and for me, that's connecting with my body. So this whole year for me is about listening to my body, and I'm incredibly sensitive. I'm clairsentient, so my body's always given me information, but now it's really kind of stepped that up. So I've had to radically change my diet, and I'm trying to work with my vital energy levels and learning to connect with my body. My body just won't tolerate any lower vibrational foods anymore. So, and it's difficult because there's so much social conditioning about how we eat and how we drink, and
right.
And so, that's been a challenge for me. How do I still connect with society when I have to make so many of these changes where, how we're social, I can't do that in the same way anymore. So it really just requires me to go back to center, and because I channel, I think I'm probably far more conscious of where my frequency is on a more regular basis throughout the day, I'll know if I'm crabby, but that doesn't necessarily mean I want to get out. There are times where I will feel like, yeah, I know I could go breathe, or I know I could go get heart-centered, but I'm just really not feeling it. So, I'll stay there for an hour.
Yeah, well, there's, Wendy, do you agree that there's sometimes that we need to feel our feelings and kind of embrace those points in life that we aren't feeling either good about ourselves or maybe a negative situation that we could have handled better? I mean, obviously everything happens for a reason, and do you agree that there's a time when we need to embrace those and maybe investigate why those things happened?
Absolutely. And I think even acknowledging that you feel a particular way, so often we suppress that and say, everything's fine, I'm not looking at it, I'm just going to keep moving. But just to definitely look and see, what came up and why it was created and how it serves you. What is it showing you? I
right.
definitely think so.
Yeah, that's
it's
what
hard
it
to. It's
Go
hard
ahead.
to take 100% responsibility for absolutely everything that's in your field of vision. I mean, it sounds easy in theory, but I mean, absolutely everything that you witness and everything that you interact with is all of your making. There's nothing that is an exception. And so all of that is a vibrational match for your own frequencies. And that's a lot some days.
It is, knowing that we actually set this up the way we wanted to show us something about ourselves in this lifetime, and I think that responsibility of knowing that we signed up for whatever we're going through, and to actually show ourselves something about ourselves. So it's very interesting. That resonated a lot with me.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy, too.
Yeah, and I think talking about it with people, because they do have this idea that you channel, you have all this access to all this information, life must be just great. Well, it is the application of that knowledge and wisdom that can be a challenge. But I'm finding this year more than any of the past that it's getting more and more uncomfortable to stay in that old habit. It's just much easier to surrender and let go. And it's how long am I going to fight it? When am I just going to simply say, this isn't working? I know what this old path, where this old path leads to. And I think that a lot of times is what gets us moving in the new direction. And we've got a lot of that energy coming in November. I think November is probably going to be a really intense month for everybody. But that energy gets us to move in a new direction, to let go of some of those old habits and all those old programs.
Right, and it's so beautiful that we're able to talk about this in a forum that is non-judgmental, and a lot of our listeners that can listen. If we can talk about these things that are kind of foreign to us until now, or until the last few years through this ascension period, I think it's very it helps everybody. And it's a beautiful thing.
Definitely.
I would ask you, to all the people out there who are listening, what is the number one tool for those people to use in their daily life that you've seen or heard or reflected back or channeled that can give them an opportunity to go down that road of self-love and enlightenment? Because that's the number one question we always get here. Is there one tool? And if so, what is it?
Wow, that's a good question. I think really it's as simple as putting yourself in your heart center, because from that space, there are no problems. I always laugh because people, when they come to group sessions or even in private session, they'll have all these questions in their mind, and as soon as they get in their hearts and are just present, all those go away, and what they wanted to ask about is no longer really an issue, because they have access to the awareness that it's not an issue, it's not a problem, and if it is something that needs to be changed, they'll get the hits of the inspiration of what adjustments to make in their life. So I think that more than anything can be quite transformative, and it's something that's easy to do. It doesn't take hours of meditation, and the guides usually recommend thinking of something that's an animal or a place, and preferably not an animal that you own or have or care for, because you may not be particularly happy with your pet that day because they may have chewed on your favorite pair of shoes, or something may have happened, or there's a program that's running at a subconscious level, which is why they don't recommend you think about a person, because you may not realize that there are programs running that don't allow you to get vibrationally as heart-centered as you could. So if you can just think of that, most people will feel expanded, warm, tingly, uplifted when they find the right image. And if you're not finding that feeling going on, look for a new image. They also recommend baby animals because of the proportions. There is coding that accesses a nurturing state in us based off of the proportions in baby animals, including humans. So that's why we all look at small puppies and kittens and go, oh.
Yeah, that
because it triggers that nurturing quality.
Sure, that makes sense, Wendy. Wendy, when we think about the past 26,000 years and the lifetimes of duality that were kind of a culmination to where we are now, is that heart space you speak of, is that is probably sounds like that's where the living in the moment is.
Absolutely.
Do you agree?
Absolutely, because if you are thinking about the quote-unquote past or future, then you're in the head, because there's some level of worry or concern. So there's either something, if it's the past, you're probably feeling guilty about it or upset in some way by it. And if you're thinking about the future, then you're probably not feeling safe. You want to control, you want to manipulate. So if you're present, you have to be heart-centered. That's the only way you can be fully present. And if you're in the heart center, then you're probably present. If you're present, then you're in the heart center.
Right, and that's where you can really love yourself, which in turn loves others as well. So that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's very beautiful. And Wendy, we're going to go to the channeling tonight. You said that you were going to bring in, I believe, the ninth dimensional Pleaidian collective this evening, correct?
Yes.
All right. Well, we're going to go to that in a minute. But before we do that, is there anything that you've been working on lately? Any events or projects that are coming down the pipe? Anything that you want to share with the listeners? A website, too?
Well, my website is higherfrequencies.net. And I think you previously mentioned the event that we have coming up in a couple weeks, which I'm very excited about.
Me too.
And again, that date is the
27th?
27th.
Yep.
And there's more information about that on my website, and I'm sure on yours as well.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? Because what we'll do here in a minute, we'll take a quick break, and I'll go through announcements and give a few more details on that event. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we go ahead and do that?
I think I'm good for now.
All right.
When did you need a break at all before we start?
Well,
I think I'm good.
Oh, okay, great. Before we get to the channel state, let me just run through for the listeners who are interested in coming to that event. It's the Cosmic Panel. It'll be October 27th. And basically, we talked a little bit about it. There'll be Wendy, myself, as well as Brad Johnson. And this is the Cosmic Panel, Mind, Body, and Spirit. And it'll feature all three of us. And in this, we're going to basically be discovering multidimensional perspectives, our relationships through the mind, body, and spirit. And what it is an interactive question and answer. This is one that I've been a part of many times before, and basically it's very great. It's an instant presenter. So it's a software that allows you to not just chat with each other. There's several people who attend these, so you'll be able to chat with each other as well as talk to the presenters. There'll be a great opportunity for everyone to co-create the event itself. But also, if you're there on the first day, you get to watch as many replays as you'd like to. The admission is $20, and that'll take place again on the 27th at 12 p.m. Pacific time, and that's 3 p.m. Eastern. And also an advantage you get from going into the very first day to do it live with us, not only being a part of the actual energy there instead of watching it back later, but also the presenters all give gifts, one gift away to everyone who's there for the first day. So it's really exciting. It's usually a 2 to 3 hour event, just depending on the energy, the co-creation. It's a wonderful opportunity to have Wendy, which is by far one of the greats of all times in channeling, one who's been there, done it all and seen it all and been there for us for a long time, co-creating opportunities to open and expand consciousness, and Brad Johnson and myself, which you guys are all very, very aware of. So it'll be a great opportunity to do that. October 27th, if you want to co-create that experience, please join us. You can get details on Wendy's website, my website, but also you can get it at ConsciousMatrix.com, and they're the ones who are sponsoring that. That's Brad Johnson's website. It'll be a real, real great event, and I appreciate all you guys for listening and tuning in. And Wendy, whenever you're ready, we'd love to get started, and we'll be taking callers too.
Great. Yes, hello, dears. This is the Ninth Dimensional Pleaidian Collective, and it is a pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to connect with you all. So, oh goodness, we're going to cover a lot of ground in our short time together, and we're very excited. And for many of you, whether you're listening now live or whether you are listening to the playback, we will work with you in the moment as you're connecting. It's not as if you missed anything, so we will help you to align and to release as you are looking to do so. We will be of service if we can be. But always, we are curious about your questions, and there is a reason why we do this and a reason why we're talking about it, and that has to do with the fact that your question-raising ability is not as strong as it could be. And when you start asking questions, you really understand your needs, you understand what it is that you want, and that's the first step to getting in the driver's seat and creating a reality the way that you want it. So we always like to start with your questions because that gets your juices flowing, so to speak, your creative juices. We certainly have a lot to say, and there are a couple of bits and pieces that we want to get in because we think it will be useful for you over the coming months to have an awareness of some of the energies coming in. But we'd like to see what you're curious about. So how may we best be of service to you?
Well, thank you, Sue, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to talk to Wendy and as well as meeting you, and we all appreciate having. I think what we'll do is we'll start off with George. I think George has a question for you first, and then we'll start taking some callers.
Yes, thank you, Ninth Dimensional Pleiadians. It's a pleasure to speak with you today. My first question is can you tell us and our listeners the current energies and what we have to look forward to in this month or next month and possibly all the way up till December 21st?
It's a big loaded question, and that is indeed what we wanted to talk about. So let's start with the energy of the year, all right? So from December 21st, 2012, up until the fall equinox in the Northern Hemisphere, September 22nd, 2013, you were basically in a gestation period in which you receive more energy, the new, well, we'll call it vital energy from the Galactic Center. You opened up to a greater alignment with this energy, and many of you have felt really, really stuck as a result of it, but really what you've been doing is adjusting to the new frequencies. It wasn't a time for action. It was a time for being still and a time for making small internal adjustments. You were moving from a state of doing back to a state of being and working from that space. So many of you felt a movement with this equinox into a bit more active state. It's slow going, but it's starting to pick up speed, that you feel clearer about what actions you need to take, what adjustments need to happen. And so that's part of the energy that you're moving into right now that will carry you through really the next 3 years. And then there will be probably another bit of a lull that you will go into, another deep clearing process. But for now, with November, there is a lot of potential for clearing out a lot of patterns. Now, how you all interpret this depends on whether you're heart-centered or whether you are in the mind, in the ego center. It can feel on the surface very, very challenging. And it will require you to be present. It will require you to be in your heart center. And with November, many issues around catastrophe will get activated again. You found that really from October through December of last year, that energy was up for the collective as you got close to 2012, the end of 2012. A lot of those fears and the memories of other lifetimes on the planet when there were big experiences where you had pole shifts, where you had floods and droughts and fires and volcanoes and earthquakes. And so a lot of that fear is coming up again so that you can process it now at a deeper level. This helps you to let go of your fear around death and dying. All right? Now, this game that you're playing, typically what you will do is create a blueprint for your life. And you will decide what issues you want to work on. You'll set up contracts with people. If the timing is right, you'll work with them. And normally you move through your blueprint, and when you're done, you go through the death cycle, and then you have a review process, and then you move to another focus, to another lifetime, and you have a different blueprint. This one's a little different because you are moving from the third into the fifth dimension, and you need a whole dimensional range in order to really play around with that because the two are so vastly different. 3D requires you to have the illusion of separation, to experience the illusion of linear time. And 5D has you focus on a multiple dimensional awareness, and you have no illusion of time. Time is simply a marker for an event, and if you want to experience it, you move to it. Whether it's in the future or the past, it doesn't really matter because it's all concurrent. And because those two-dimensional structures are so fixed and so different, you have the fourth dimension, which is very, very malleable. And you can apply 3D rules to the game or 5D rules, and you constantly are shifting which rules you want to apply to your life right now. Now, normally this period, as we said, you would go through a death cycle. But because the structures of the game are so different, you have two blueprints that you came in with this lifetime. You have the pre-shift and the post-shift blueprint. You have a 3D blueprint and then what we will call a 4/5D. And the reason we're labeling it that way is because it is, you can still play it out by applying the 5D rules to the 4D matrix. And that's what you're activating right now. Normally, you would get a brand new body, but you are learning how to make this transition with all of your current programs. So many of you are finding that a lot of issues around death and around the body are surfacing because these are being cleared out rather than you having to go through the death cycle. And many of you are finding that even though you've never had issues with your physical body before, all of a sudden all of your physical issues are showing up. That's so that you can ground and connect with the body and that you can clear at this level so that you can release this fear. And there are a number of activities that are coming in November. There's some things, potentials that we're seeing. And these are just potentials, and it's very malleable, and you all can shift it based on your focus. And that means at the personal level, where are you vibrating with the issues that we're going to present here as we talk about it? Are you afraid of these things happening?
or are you feeling rather flat about it all? And that's the piece for you to take away. Your external world is a reflection for everything you're holding internally. So if you're discontent with your government, what issues get triggered in you? All right? Is it authority? Is it control? Is it manipulation? Is it dishonesty? Lack of honesty. That's perhaps a better way for us to say that. And we would say, turn that inward. Where are you controlling? Where are you not being honest with yourself? Because that's why you feel that way about your government, as opposed to just looking at it to see, this is what the masses are creating right now. So with November, as we said, there are some more issues around the government to surface about the efficiency of it. And then also ISON, as it comes in, as the comet comes in, that's going to trigger a lot of energy for many of you. We don't really see a lot happening except for the sun being a bit more excited and solar flare activity, which can affect your electromagnetic grid. And we're not talking just about the physical grid that runs your electricity, that powers your light, but we're also talking about your personal energetic electromagnetic grid. And this can make many of you feel very spacey and forgetful and off. We would also recommend that many of you pay attention to your moods. You may walk out the door at 9 o'clock in the morning and feel absolutely great. You're in a fabulous mood, and then by noon you feel that you're down in a funk. And there may not have been anything big that went on in your life to cause you to drop to that vibrational level. And it's very important that you check in with yourself. Remember, any frequency that you're vibrating at is a choice. Any emotion that you choose is just that, a choice. And oftentimes you have emotions coupled with kinds of experiences. So let us say that if you, for example, ask someone out and they say, I'm sorry, I'm not so interested, you choose to go into depression or anxiety or upset, because that's how you've got it conditioned. But an emotion you could choose is gratitude, because they were honest and they felt that you weren't a vibrational match. Otherwise, it would have been easy and work out. So that's what's coming in November for you. When you get to the winter solstice in the Northern Hemisphere, again, yes, you'll find that there will be another surge of energy, another download packet that you receive from the sun. The sun is your metronome, in a sense. It gives you instructions to go through the ascension process. It tells you what the next step is, or the next set of lessons that you all are working on. When you get into 2014, again, it's going to be an interesting ride for you all. February, you've got some potentials to look at your financial system. In June, you've got some potentials for connecting more with your galactic collective. And then when you get into the fall, there's more energy around authority issues, military and police. That will come up for you. And all these are simply opportunities for you to let go, to release your judgment, not to blame anyone, but to look rather at your own life to see where do you play that out at the personal level. And as you make the changes at the personal level, that's how you create change in the outer world. All right? It's by changing your state of being, not just by the doing state, but the being state is far more potent in creating change than anything that you could do from the 3D level of doing, of action. So I'll ask everyone to take a nice deep breath. Yes, and we'll let you get a word in edgewise here.
Wow. Thank you, Peace. When you were talking about, and this is for our listeners and everybody who might be listening to this at a later date, when you mentioned the discomforts that we might be having with our bodies, can we correlate those with the, depending on on what issues they are with the 7 chakras of the body? And if so, what is the way to clear that negative energy that we might be experiencing?
You could correlate it with the chakras, but we would say it gets a bit too mental for most of you. So we would keep it simple. We would say, what color is your least favorite? All right. And whatever one you choose, that's the one you need to work with. That's a really quick, easy way for you all. But really, it's checking in with yourself. What emotion is surfacing? All right. Is it anger, frustration, grief? And what is the thought or belief that you're holding that keeps it in place? And you can ask yourself that. My thought that creates this either pain in my body, or that creates this upset with my family, or that, creates the tension in my marriage. What is it? You can ask yourself, and your subconscious will bring it up. Now, the first dozen times, or half a dozen times, you may say, I don't know. But eventually something will pop up into the mind, and it may not be logical. We're not talking about logic. We're talking about emotions. So that's the first place to start. I'm not good enough is perhaps what pops in. All right? Well, now that you know and it's made its way into your conscious awareness, you can start working with the opposite energy. I am good enough. All right? And what does that feel like in the body? If you were to believe you were good enough, and oftentimes people will have resistance to that, and then, one of the ways you can work is to say, well, if it was possible to feel good enough, this is what it would feel like, and then allow yourself to play around, because every emotion your body has had. It has a sense memory, a cellular memory, and the cells can go back to that frequency. As soon as you align with it, all the cells start aligning. It creates a cascade effect, and most of the time it starts in the heart center, and then that cascades through the entire body, and the cells adjust the frequency. The longer you hold it, the more it moves through the body, and this happens when you're thinking negatively as well, that it will cascade through the body, and the longer you hold it, the more intense it is, the faster it cascades through, and the farther it goes through the body.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you so much, Pease. I'm through with my questions, brother. If you want to start the callers, or if you have a question yourself.
Absolutely. We have a caller from a Skype telephone. I talked to you before the show from the 111 area code. Who do we have with us this evening?
Jennifer.
Hey, Jennifer. How are you doing?
Hi, Jennifer.
If you have a question,
Hi.
Go ahead and ask.
Actually, I think my question kind of got cleared up when George asked his question as far as the clarity with the energy. So I think it's been answered.
All right. Well, do you have another question you could think of?
I guess whatever comes up for Wendy, or for the Pleaidian Collective, if there's anything coming up right now that she wants to, or that they want to tell us.
Well, let's talk about grounding, and that's one for you, dear. So really what's going to help you all move through this period is making sure you're grounded and connected to your body. As we said, many of you who are good at connecting with the stellar energy or prefer to connect with the stellar energy aren't so keen on connecting with the earth energy. And there are lots of beliefs that you hold about it, that it's difficult, that it's challenging, that it's painful, that people are unkind. And so one of the ways that you coped and managed in the past was to not fully engage your energy, your soul energy, into the body. And when we look at you from the energetic level, the bottom of your auric field, which is usually a couple feet below your physical feet, is about mid-thigh level. So what that does is it keeps you from accessing your full power and running more energy through the body. So as you practice grounding and connecting with the body, you're going to have more vital energy. You're going to have more access to information, intuition, inspiration, and know that you're not alone. Yes, you may be someone who connects with the stellar realms and you're not so keen on connecting with the earth, but there are those who are very earth-oriented, who are now being forced to do just the opposite. They're being forced to connect more and more with the stellar realms. So you all are getting it from both extremes. But for most of you who are listening to us, you are certainly among those connecting with the stellar realms. So how do you connect with the body, and how do you know when you're not in it? If you are engaged in an activity and you don't really remember doing it, all right, say driving, for instance, and you don't really remember the last 3 miles that you drove, you don't remember what happened with the cars in front of you or what you passed on the way, that's a really good indication you're not connected and present. And another example is, you are putting the body in a certain location. Let's say you walk into another room and you don't remember why you've been there. You've given your body instruction, but you're not really clear on it. Another good indication you're not connected with the body. So any sort of visualization that you can think of that puts the focus on the body will get you grounded and connected to the body. One of the things that we recommend is envisioning a beautiful golden light, and you want to see it coming in through the top of the head and making its way down into one single cell. And that beautiful golden light fills up that cell until it can no longer contain it, and like a little sun going supernova, it bursts into the next cell. And then the process starts again, where the cell is lit up with this beautiful golden light, and it goes supernova and moves into the next cell until it's gone all the way through your body. Now, this golden light is your soul's essence. So you are infusing your cellular structure with your soul's essence and enlivening it. Now, that's really the first step in recognizing connection to the body. It's usually easier for you all to recognize when you're not in it first. And once you do that, you will know the difference. Part of what you're going through right now is learning to understand frequency and identify it. You're getting really good at it. We often liken it to a painter who can look at a particular color and say, well, these are, this color is very different from that. And to a layman or somebody who doesn't paint or work with colors, they may look identical, but perhaps it's a purple that has a bit more blue in it than the one next to it. So part of it is just you becoming more and more aware of the subtleties of frequency. So we hope that helps a bit, because this is really key. It's a vital piece. And you can also think of it this way, that once you ground and connect with your body, it's a bit like being anchored, so that when a storm comes, you're not taken away by the storm. You're anchored and you're rooted so that you can simply bob on top.
Oh, that's great, Pease. Would grounding ourselves in the visualization of to the earth help as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. And however, again, as you want to do that, whether you want to see the energy going down to your feet and to the core of the earth and back up, any sort of visualization that you want to do. And frankly, it doesn't take a lot of time. Your intention and your desire to connect and putting your focus there is really all that it takes. Now, for some of you, it is about maintaining the frequency. As you become more skilled at establishing it or realigning with the frequency, you won't have to do the long meditations, or you won't have to do the reset so often, because you'll be able to maintain it. You'll be able to hold it. But in the beginning, for most of you, whether it's staying in a heart-centered space or whether it's trying to connect with your body or the earth, it will take some practice. And you're not going to stay there. You will get activated and you'll drop out. And then you just have to remind yourself, I'm not connected anymore. And I have a choice and I can reconnect. And so we say it's a bit like just hitting the reset button. And you might do that a dozen times through the day or a couple dozen times through the day.
And it's important not to berate yourselves, to beat yourselves up about the fact that you're not maintaining it, because you simply are out of practice. You don't have the stamina for it. So you're building it up. When you go to the gym, you don't expect to run a marathon the first time you go. You have to work at it. You have to condition yourselves. And this is what you do vibrationally as well.
Well, thank you for that answer. It was a beautiful answer.
Beautiful.
And thank you, caller, for that wonderful question. We'll go to our next caller in the 360 area code. Who do we have with us this evening?
Hello, dear ones. This is Risha calling.
Hey, Risha. How you doing?
I am so good listening to the P's. Thank you.
They're wonderful.
Do you have a question, Risha, tonight?
My initial question, hello, dear P's, was actually been about frequency, but since that got answered and I loved all that information, I'm going to go deeper into the question that's really on my mind, in my heart. It has to do with sex. And it is that I've learned that sex, how wonderful it feels, and when it's heart-based and in my heart, but sometimes it's as though I take the sexual energy to my lower chakras, and when I do, it feels as though there's other energies that obviously I've created them, and they're here for my challenge, but it feels as though my energy is being siphoned off and used for something that I don't agree with, that I don't want. Does that make any sense?
Yes, and let us say this, that there is never anything that you experience that you haven't agreed to at some level. Now, that's hard for the mind sometimes, but there is part of you that is agreeing to it, and what we're seeing is some connection with family energy, that you are supporting some of your family energetically. And what you notice when you put more energy, sexual energy down there, you notice that it's almost like lighting up a dark room, all right? There are things that you may not have noticed in the dark that when the light comes in, you say, oh, look, I haven't dusted for a while, or, oh, look what's sitting in the corner of the room. So there are some energetic cords and connections that we're seeing that just need to be cleared out. And we want you to take a breath right now. All right? And this is done, frankly, out of a service of love, that part of you felt it was necessary to support and help those, but really it's not nourishing yourself. So as you clear out some of that energy, you're not going to notice it as much. So if you want to play with that sexual energy, and instead of running it up and out or running it to wherever you want to run it to, because sexual energy is quite potent and you can contain it or you can send it out. If you decide to send it down to the lower chakras, where you'll find more of that energy will go as you send it down to the first chakra is to healing and working with the physical body and amplifying your vital energy. So it's not going to feel murky or we'll say congested. Well, your guide is saying congested. There's something about that word for you. They're being very specific, and don't be surprised if you start hearing people over the next several days mention being congested. So that's part of it. That's part of it. Also be aware of what is your intention before you use that sexual energy. Because when you're clear about how and what you want to use that energy for, the potency of it is much more intense. All right, it's much higher because you've given it focus. So if you are by yourself and you want to use that for healing, you can, even if you're with another and that's your intention, whether it's to connect, whether, you can have a conversation with your partner about what you want to do with the energies. So there's a lot more that can happen with it than it haphazardly going wherever it wants to go. Does that make sense?
Sorry, I've got her muted. Go ahead, Risha.
Oh, thank you so much. My body just began to shake, and I understand now. And the idea of using the energy. And is it okay just to say at some point, no, I'm not sharing this energy anymore? Or how do I...
Well, yes, we'd hope so, because it's not really serving you and it's not really supporting them. Not really, because if it helps you to think of it this way, you are not helping them to learn their lessons of being self-sufficient.
Yes.
All right? So by using that energy for yourself, you allow them to be self-sufficient and you to be healthy. So it's a far more balanced way for you to be. And also see that they're capable. Whatever issues or problems they're having, know that they never create a problem without also creating the solution at the very same time. We often say it's like a game of hide and seek. You hide the problem, all right? You create the problem, you hide the solution, and then you spend, usually for most of you, the next few months, a few years, trying to find it. And really, it's just a matter of you allowing yourself to open back up and see what that is. You created it. You can shift it. Period.
Wonderful.
When you say that you're shifting the energy or changing the pattern of that or placing it where you wish to have, does that require just a straight intent of the mind before the actual physical act of sex, or during just a regular intent to higher self or of the mind?
Well, we would say it's an intention with the heart as opposed to the mind, but usually that gets processed through the mind. Yes, it can be a thought. It doesn't have to be verbalized.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you, Risha, for calling. We always enjoy your calling in.
Thank you, Risha.
Oh, and we have another caller from the 818 area code. Who do we have with us this evening?
Hello, this is Danielle. How are you this evening?
Hi, Danielle. How are you?
Danielle.
I'm wonderful, thank you. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you for calling.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, I'm so enjoying this show. The P's are absolutely wonderful, wonderful.
They are.
My question is, I've been getting a lot of connections with different Pleaidians here lately through my pendulum. I communicate with my pendulum, and I would like to know what the association is with me and them, and why I'm getting so many connections with them now. What is it that's going on with me, or what is it that I am to do or here to do, the reason why I'm getting so many connections from so many different places?
Well, there are a couple things that are coming up. One, we would say, and the first thing that they really want to get across to you, it's time to put the pendulum down. It's time to just listen. And because you can, all right, you're ready. You're ready to be able to hear fully and clearly, all right? So that's the first thing that they want you to know. And part of the reason why you're connecting with so many of them is because it's an energy that you're comfortable with. It's a system that you're familiar with. And they're here to remind you that you have a lot more wisdom and access to knowledge than you have previously given yourself credit for. So that's part of why they're coming through, to help you access some of your records, to help you access not only your personal records, but those of others, to share information if you choose, as well as earth records. And you have played around a lot in other lifetimes of having this awareness, of being able to access, sometimes working with crystals, sometimes working with the matrix or the grid of the planet or stellar body. So they're here to remind you of that.
Well, thank you for the call, and thank you for the answer as well.
Thank you, Danielle.
We have another caller from the 505 area code. Who do we have with us this evening?
May I withhold my name?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling tonight.
Yes, thank you for answering me. Mrs. P, if you still go by that.
Yes.
Okay, good. My mother was always a very critical influence in my life, and it dragged me down so much. And then she passed away last year, and for me that was a big relief, and I felt like I could finally live my life the way I wanted to. And shortly after that, my domestic partnership broke up. He was a lovely man, but he didn't want to be with me anymore, and we have 2 children together, and so I continue to interact with him. And he has become this incredibly verbally abusive person, very critical of me, which he never was before. And I feel like I just replaced my mother. For some reason, I felt I needed to have that pattern. I don't know. Can you help me understand, why do I think I need this pattern? And I thought I was done with it. I keep thinking I'm done with it, and then he keeps going. How do I complete this and set him free and set me free so that he's not abusing me anymore?
Well, we see this quite often with you all, and what you will do is create those familial patterns with your new family members, your lovers, your partners, that you then create your own family with, and then you'll bring in the children to do the same thing, that you will use relationships to be the reflection, again, of what's going on internally. And your mother was that, and as soon as she wasn't there, you needed a reflection, so it amplified in another. All right, it amplified in the relationship. And we will tell you that your partner has the same issue, otherwise you wouldn't be playing it out together. And that is, it is about being good enough. All right, I am good enough, and starting to work with that and paying more attention to the inner critic and how often you judge how you're doing something, what you think you should be doing, and how you're actually using your time, and also your own abilities in every subtle way, all right, from the way you look, from the way you are interacting with others, and even in this issue, why am I not done with it? All right, so that's another judgment. All right, why can't I let go? I'm not good enough to let go of it. So it's the same pattern, and it's looking at these subtleties and becoming aware of them. And every time you catch yourself, you can start to reprogram. All right, just hit the reset button, and that's putting yourself back in your heart center because you're in your head. The mind is the operating system for the 3D reality. You needed, as you came down through descension, a mechanism to create the illusion of separation and to create the illusion of linear time, and that was the mind. You also needed something to run programs of limited thoughts and beliefs so that you could stay in density, because as you came through the descension process, at the high end, you had the awareness that you really were part of source energy, and you could create whatever you wanted, and you would keep popping out of the game. All right, the game was illusion and separation, but you remembered you were a creator being, and off you went. So when you set up these programs in the mind, it allowed you to enter into density. And then once you enter in, the process of spiraling down deeper and lower in frequency happens exponentially. The same thing happens on the ascension process on the way up, that as you awaken faster. All right, and that's what you all are in the process of doing right now. So pay more attention to where that inner critic is busy. And as we were talking earlier about the subconscious beliefs, you can ask yourself, the negative thought that creates the discomfort in my relationship with my ex is fill in the blank. Or the reason I feel, the thought that creates this upset in me is fill in the blank. All right, but what we're seeing right now is there are 2, actually. It's deserving, and part of that went back to your birth pattern with your mother. She was a little nervous about having you, and so that triggered a lot of anxiety from you from the get-go about your deservedness to be here. Take a breath. And by the way, we get you all to breathe because when you hold your breath, you stay in fear. So when you're breathing, you're moving through it, and you're bringing new life force energy in. So there's an aspect of deservedness and an aspect of good enough. And as you work through that,
you're going to find that how others reflect back to you those beliefs has changed. You don't have to change your partner. All you have to do is change you. Change how you talk to yourself and what you feel you deserve. I deserve loving words of kindness. I deserve consideration. And where are you not being kind to yourself? Where are you not considering your own feelings or verbalizing your own thoughts? All right, so we'll leave you with that, but that's a big one for everybody.
Yes, thank you, caller.
Yeah, thank you, caller. And everyone, we only have a few minutes left with the agreed upon time with Wendy, and there's many of you that are still on hold. So we're going to try to get to as many of you can before this time's up. If you're on hold, just be patient, and hopefully we'll get to you. 216, you're up next. Who do we have with us this evening?
Aloha, this is your friend Kauai Lightworker in Cleveland, Ohio.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, very well. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so blessed. I'm enjoying this show so
calling.
much. It's my favorite thing. Okay, so my question is, the last time I talked to 90PC, you guys mentioned, we're very aware of creating energy, but you guys slipped us the hint of dissolving energy. And then I was wondering if you guys could give us some more insight on dissolving energy. I've heard about, the ETs in the higher dimension materializing and dematerializing, and I was wondering if you guys could comment on that.
Well, that's part of it. It's as you move into the higher realms, you can bilocate. You can put energy and focus into another point of existence, and you can generate another body. And then just as you generate it, you can remove it, and it dissolves naturally. You can think about the process that you go through here with decay, whether it's a leaf decaying on the ground, and it goes back to the elemental pieces, particles. It's the same thing, but the speed at which it happens is much, much faster. And for everything that we create, whether we create, we'll put it in physical terms. We don't really create this because we don't have physical form the way you do, but we'll say if we were to create a building, or we were to create structures of any kind, if we felt as a collective we were done with it, we could remove our energy from it, and the whole thing would dissolve. It wouldn't sit there and decay over thousands of years. It would have no need to, because our focus of thought, we have the understanding and the awareness that by removing it, it's done, it's gone, it's vanished. Now, you are so ingrained in your belief that time is linear, and every now moment is built on an agreed-upon set of circumstances, some that collectively you agree on, and then some that are your personal story. And every day you reinitialize those programs to say, this is who I am, and this is what's going on the planet. Well, you don't make big leaps in the changes in the stories that you tell yourself. For us, yes, we would make what you would consider to be a big leap by saying the civilization of the city was there, and now the entire thing is wiped out. We don't need it anymore, so there's no need to use the energy to create it. So that's in part what we mean by dissolve. And that also, as you learn to work with this kind of energy, you'll find that you don't really have a problem with disposal of what you consider to be garbage or waste. You simply allow it to be released back to its elemental form, its pure energy form.
Wonderful.
We'd
Thank
say
you, Paula.
everyone take a nice breath, and we'll leave it there.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we're almost to the end of the allotted time that we had agreed on with Wendy. Do you wish to take another question for the Pleaidian Collective, or do you wish to end with a personal note, something that you wish us to understand?
Well, we will say this, that what we talked about, some of the energies coming in and the challenges of it, we do that just so that you don't get lost in it to say, what am I doing wrong? There is in every moment the infinite possibility for you to experience unlimited happiness and joy. It's just a matter of choice. So that's why we talk about some of the bigger things that we think are coming, as opposed to all of the wonderful moments of joy and creation, because we know that the human mind tends to go to the negative. So that's what we're working with. But there is a lot of energy coming in for new creative thought, new structures, new systems for you to put into place. And right now, you have no reference for the form. You just don't. It hasn't existed on the planet before, not even in the high times of Atlantis or Lemuria. And what you are being forced to work with is frequency as opposed to form. So in the things you would like to create for your personal life, in the things you would like to see for the world, work with frequency. I would like to experience more joy, more abundance, more expansion, more upliftment, those kinds of things, and put the energy and focus there. And it's not so much about thinking about it, but feeling what it would be like to experience that in the heart center. So we are excited to see what you all create, because you have great imaginations and you have a lot of support on this side. Feel free to call on us directly. None of you need Wendy. All you must do is put yourself in your heart center and listen, and that's it. And we'll do our best to connect with you. And if you need confirmation, you can ask for it, and we'll put it in your physical world. So until then, we will be watching and waiting and sending many well wishes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I also want to thank all the callers. Sorry that the time did not allow us to get to all of you this evening. We had an unusually high call frequency, and there's no mistake why, because Wendy's great, and she's been doing this for a long time, and she does it. Like I said, you're one of the best, Wendy, and we appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure.
Is there anything you wanted to say to all the listeners before we leave for the night?
Really just thank you, because, I couldn't do what I do on a daily basis without everybody's energy and curiosity and support. So I just want to express my gratitude and appreciation, and thank you both for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's been really lovely.
Oh, thank you, Wendy. And to all our listeners, if they need to contact you to book a session, please do that. It'll be a out-of-this-world experience. So thank you so much, Wendy, for your time, and wish you all the best as well.
Thank you, Wendy, and we'll see you on the 27th, all right?
Yes.
All right. You have a very good evening, Wendy, and thank you. And everyone else out there, we appreciate the call, the co-creation, the connection, the love that you guys have. If you guys want to book a personal session with Wendy, go to her website. That's higherfrequencies.net, all one word, all small letters, higherfrequencies.net. You can request a session there. Also, to find out more information about the event that Wendy, myself, and also Brad Johnson will be doing on the 27th of this month, please feel free to go again to higherfrequencies.net. You can also go to my own website, trebchanneling.com. That's trebchanneling, all one word, .com. Or you can go to consciousmatrix.com, and that's Brad Johnson's website, and that is the website who is sponsoring this event. So go to any of those three. We have information on my website. I have an extended video that really gets in depth. It's a 15-minute video that explains what will be going on, who will be there, how it works. Also testimonials from other people who have been to previous events that were just like this. And this will be a little different. It's a simultaneous channeling. And we've only done one of those before through the Matrix or consciousmatrix.com. And also me and Brad were one of the first people to do that open and for free. And you can find that on YouTube. All you have to do is type in Access the Matrix, Treb, and Adronis, or Rob Gauthier, Brad Johnson. So check that out. We just want to thank all of you guys. It was such a great show, one of the three best that we've done so far. Every time we've had a guest, it's been phenomenal. This is no exception. You can contact us every Wednesday. Come listen to us. Check us out here on Blog Talk Radio, every Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. You can also contact us directly on the Rob and George Show at gmail.com. That's all one word, all small letters, the Rob and George Show at gmail.com. Ask us questions, give us feedback, insight, anything like that. Come to the event on the 27th if it resonates with you, if Wendy's work or Treb, my own work with Treb, or Brad's with the Dronus resonates with you. And what else, brother? What else do you want to say before we disconnect this evening?
Well, I just wanted to thank Wendy again for her gracious time, and our listeners. Another great week of wonderful questions. And I know everybody was just loved the show tonight, and I'm just so excited, and can't wait to do it again next week, brother.
Absolutely. And if you guys want to re-listen to this, those of you who are on Blog Talk Radio, you know how to access the archive for this. But for some of you who might be listening from a phone or through another media, this will be on YouTube as well, on my own YouTube channel. I'm not sure if Wendy will place it on hers or not, but you'll have the opportunity to listen to it again. There was a lot of in-depth, deep information covered here.
Great
and
question.
I know when I listen to Treb's work, and same as you, brother, we have to go back and listen to it 2 or 3 times to get everything in there.
Yeah, we sure do. It's timeless information, and the more you listen to it, the more information you'll get, and it's just a beautiful thing. And it's so great to be able to offer this type of information. It's what we all need right now. We all are one, so let's join together and be a part of this transition. Make it a good one. As Wendy said, these energies are coming to the earth, so let's try to get more information about how we can help ourselves and others, and most of all, love ourselves and be kind to ourselves as well.
Absolutely. Self-love, awareness, all of these things are so vitally important to the process of growth. And this is why we do the radio show every week. Every Wednesday we're here so that you can call in and you can ask a question. Me and George have dealt with Treb a lot through my channeling, through George's ability to encode. So we have a lot of information, and we don't know everything. And what we don't know is given to us by higher self through the reflections of not just your questions, but your comments and your experiences. And that's why we're here. We love you guys so much. We thank you all for showing. And again, thank you, Wendy, for being such a great guest and giving this information to the collective consciousness. That's why we're here, to help raise the collective consciousness and to help all of you reflect. And we love you guys so much. Anything else, brother, before we go?
No, just love and light to all, and see you next week.
Oh, absolutely. This is the Rob and George Enlightenment Evolution Hour. This is Rob.
And this is George.
And we will be here next week, as we are every week. We love you guys, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Bye-bye.
Love you, bye.